I want to share some idea about how to access the wisdom and compassion and live life with peace and harmony. Religious orientation or spiritual orientation has certain insight related to that, but it's an overall issue of how we live. So it's interesting to connect to what I've done at work and how it may connect to this point from spirituality about wisdom, compassion, and awakening so that we can live life peacefully in harmony without much delusion, but wisdom and compassion. As we live, what I find is that everything has to function in a coordinated manner, addressing the needs to live, not in a segmented way, one after the other, but in a holistic manner. What it means is that the life of animals and plants are just following the law of nature. So they do their best, depending upon the situation they get into, to make the most of it. And they evolve over time, which we see. And as human, kind of like an extension of those plant life, animal life, we added brain to excel in many areas than just the plant and animal. So we succeeded to live this much, and almost 8 billion people is on Earth. Yet the evolution would continue. How we use a brain become the issue. Because if we are too occupied in the brain, we call mind, and especially when we are self-centered, we only see from each person's view to make the most what they think, what they feel, what they think is right, but it may not capture the whole system of how things are happening. For example, we may look at certain things and think this is Apple or whatever, and you don't see it from the other person's perspective. That may look different depending upon the angle. So synthesizing and have the broader view of what this whole life is important for us to live, not just living self-centered way, the egocentric approach. And if we don't do that, we may suffer. We hit the wall and bang your head against the wall, and you get into trouble. But if you see the whole nature of the situation that's happening, then we can find the passage through that. So the evolution can continue from plant to animal to egocentric to even more holistic way. And the result is that we may not sub-optimize or locally optimizing things, but looking at the global picture. So each of those evolution had certain threshold or the difficulties, the hurdles, but we can move on and move on. So as much as Maslow has indicated in the hierarchy of needs, from the basic needs to the self-actualization, there are steps to go through. So what I want to share is just one key issue, which is how to coordinate the whole instead of sub-optimizing or being egocentric. Because it's not helpful for each person if you are egocentric, because you have to pay the price for it. And for the whole system, sub optimization is not good. So we should find a way to relate to each other. But that requires us, each of us, to go beyond the hurdle of what I see in the mind. Mind itself is there as a progression from the origin of living being, and the DNA extended from the plant level, animal level, into human level, so to speak. And this evolution may, or I'd like to say should continue, because sub-optimizing or creating the bottleneck in the system doesn't make sense for each individual, but for the whole system. So as a way to go beyond further, I think, for example, AI, technology, all that will help. But each individual need to look inside of them to see what they do so that their bottlenecks can be taken care of, that the energy can flow smoothly and have a harmony with others, and at the same time have peace. So if I reflect back my 3 books, and the second one, The New Shop Floor Management, I mentioned the 2 key elements in there. One is self-management, and the other one is transparency. Self-management with the idea of the mini company, that each element of the organization, whether it's top or middle or bottom, doesn't matter. Each person has his mini universe, that's his mission and his customers and suppliers to relate to manage. Because if it's not done right there, the mini company president as a general manager to do that, but just responding to the needs coming from the top or firefighting issues that can pop up. It's like having a brain to across whole of the organization, all mini companies. So it's an empowerment issue for each to find the destiny in his life, or at work in this case, but find a way to go through what I call plan, do, check, act cycle of continuous improvement, so that the skills are enhanced, ability to manage is enhanced, and each cell or the mini companies can contribute the most. And in that process, I mentioned transparency, I call glass wall management comes into play. Because if each element or each mini company is expressing their way for them to become the president and find the destiny and move forward, their action and the result and the process can be shared with others if there's transparency. So it's not like going into the computer, but I kept talking about the idea of if it's important, make it visible. So when you picture the organization with all the information necessary to run that mini company and relating to all the top on the company as a whole, how things are happening, you can picture red and green, in terms of the good and bad, so that they can align their activities to achieve the mission at each mini company's level, each individual's level, to the whole company organization, whole organization. So in that second book, those 2 principles are shared. So, but that is for the company, organization. But I also say that structure can exist in our own, each individual, because there's a executive function from the frontal lobe of the brain, that's what they say, to find out which direction to go, how and how to orchestrate like a top management. And then we have different departments within to follow, which may be in charge of the health of body or health of the mind, or related to work or hobby or relationship, health or financial issues. So each element or segment of those to be managed like a mini company, but as a whole has to have the relationship and understanding. And for that, we need to have a glass wall management applied in individual case, each of us. And what does that mean to have a glass wall? That is as if to let the situation speak itself from each of the mini company or mini me in this case, each in charge of the health or relationship, work, whatever, can express something, but all of those has to have a sense of contributing to the whole, and the idea of the red and green has to be made simple for us to make judgment. But if we keep using our mind like a linear thinking, you look into the A, B, and C, but not look at the whole picture, we need to have a moment to have the idea of samadhi, no mind and no self. No self so that the ego is taken out, no mind so that we are not just part of this continuous thinking, linear thinking, but stop thinking to look at the whole picture. Like the idea of the glass wall management applied in individual's case, so that you know what the bottleneck is, instead of moving on as you feel, jumping around without checking what it's really is happening and what's really is needed and what's the priorities, what's the bottleneck, and how to address it. So it's applying the idea I mentioned in the second book into each individual's case. In the third book, Results from the Heart, therefore, is that when we practice that in each individual's case, as much as in organization's case, it's just analogous analogy structure of the organization from the big to mini and the mini me, or mini me, mini me, into the cell level. Because I often say heart, lung, kidney, all of those organs relate to each other without the frontal lobe, directing what to do, how much pressure at the heart and what frequency. It's done naturally. So we want to have that natural force that brought us to the level of us human being to live like this, and on top of it was the brain added. But if the brain is too heavy, body suffer. Body is too dictating and not listening to the body, everybody suffers. So stop, observe, no mind, no self, samadhi state I mentioned elsewhere. It's necessary at times. If we don't, mind goes wild, monkey mind. There's no place to settle. They keep seeking, not stopping and observing. So glass wall management, practice of that in organization, but in each individual is important. to make sense of what's going on, find the priorities, bottlenecks, find the strategy, approaches. And that comes like an inspiration, like the word from Carl Jung on synchronization. Every now and then we have the element to come up with new insight because there's a stillness in the mind to let the mind to play without being egocentric for at the top level, but more for each of those cells and the mini-me's and me's to express, and the glassful management, transparency, help them to express, and that comes out as wisdom and compassion. I don't know if you're following me, but that picture is the same that you can use and apply it in the organization, which I did 40 years or so. But individual's case, I have been doing it in Zen meditation, Shin Buddhism, all the religions, spirituality. And I see the analogy of it. That's what I said, and that's what I confirmed. So, what? The point I want to simplify this whole idea is that we tend to create tribalism or silos, suboptimizing. So there's a need for transparency, glass wall management to take place, and have the potentials of coordinated effort, like a synchronicity idea from the big data to come up with a specific insight, what's good for the society and what's good for the people. I think AI may help in that direction if we use it correctly, but whatever the case is, individually, we can practice samadhi, which is no mind and no self, every now and then. I said even 10 seconds or 5 seconds, multiple times a day. So you stop, observe, find what's going on, capture the essence with the synchronicity, or let the data speak to us. And that is only be done when we don't have the barrier between brain and heart, or brain and body, and among those departments or mini companies, so that they can communicate with each other without being hampered by the top initiating certain things too. So that produces insight, even awakening, transformation of the organization, and that should continue because the environment changes and each individual change, or within each individual, whole structure and the interrelationship and the needs keep changing because everything is impermanent. So what does that mean? We have to let go of the barrier. How do we let go of the barrier? By no mind, no self. And what happens? What happens is the stress being dispersed or shared or found in different parts of who we are, have a chance for the nature's way to address it. Nature's way to address is like all mini companies help each other because of their customer-supply relationship, and given the time and energy and focus toward that direction with transparency, sorry for the interruption, for the transparency, it's as if self-healing power takes place. And the self-healing power may be found as awakening, even enlightenment, or in a small scale level, certain barriers we have inside is now smoothened out and taken care. So it's like you cut the finger in the nature's way would have it so that the whole body would somehow find a way to bring out the certain hormone or antioxidant. I don't know what the specifics, but it cures by nature's way because it's built in us. So what it means is that instead of confinement and the barriers that we create in the mind, there has to be a sort of like a counter force or coordinating process and bringing the things needed at each of those by our mind being calm and quiet in a samadhi state. Shin Buddhism, Myokonin, person like Saichi talk about this, or Nembutsu is Namu Amidab, Namu Amidab, the same as samadhi, as I say it, that promote the way to go over the hurdles that mind create and the stress being affecting our body. That's not healthy. We want to go beyond that, and the transparency and self-managing ideas for all to have opportunity to express themselves. And it can happen as awakening, even enlightenment, so that we feel vibrant, lively, find a way to live, even under difficulties. It's a long story. It's already 22 minutes. But if you look at the simple phenomena of cutting the finger and being cured by the nature's way, we need to know the limitation of mind and somehow connect to the root of who we are, where this healing power can help us. Whether it's a big awakening or small or mini awakening or any idea generation, it's okay. But let's have a moment to have whole transparency throughout our mind and body and connect to the source, the energy we have, and live without negating that power, but connect it. Let that healing to speak or take place, speak in insight or take place in healing, so that we can live a happy life. Thank you.